Right, what's going on, people? Welcome back to the Ben Bowman THFC channel. As you can see, I've got a very special guest today. We've got Fuad on the channel, and we are going to be doing a brutal Spurs keep, loan, sell for next season. There's been obviously a lot of negativity going on at the moment. Off the back of the defeat to Arsenal, we're in a relegation battle. I feel like we've kind of talked almost to death about that. So let's look ahead a little bit more positively, maybe to next season, how we can kind of put this squad together, what players maybe need to be moved on, who we think is going to be a key player for us. Obviously, this is all under the guise of if we do stay up in the Premier League. And if you want to hear more about our thoughts on that, we have done a video on Fuad's channel as well, predicting the rest of the run-in for Spurs. So make sure to go and watch that when that does drop as well. Fuad, thank you very much for coming on, man. I massively appreciate it. We've been wanting to do something before.
I appreciate you having me on, man.
Now we can do it, man.
This is a good conversation to have, to be fair. I always feel like there's so many kind of differing opinions given on our players, and especially from outsiders as well. And I feel like us coming together and just kind of putting a bit of structure around this squad, because honestly, even amongst Spurs fans, I feel like opinions differ so much from player to player. So I actually just been meaning to do this. I did one earlier in the season with expressions, but as you know, bro, every 2 months the life cycle of this team changes. So yeah,
exactly. Exactly. I did something. I think I did something similar towards. I think it was like the first international break, maybe. But I think a lot again has changed. Like a lot has changed between now and then. If you could subscribe to the channel if you are new, that'd be massively mean a lot. Fuad is also on the road to 20k as well. So if you go, make sure to go and subscribe to his channel. Lots of amazing Spurs content over there. So make sure to go and check that out. So let's get into this then. I want to start with one player who I feel like has been a bit of a topic of conversation amongst the Spurs fan base at the moment, and that is Guillermo Vicario. Obviously, didn't massively cover himself in glory on Sunday. I didn't think it was one of his worst performances, but I feel like there was a kind of bit of a discourse around him. Vicario is one of these players for me that as soon as he has a little mini decent run, I feel like I can never get too excited because I know what's around the corner. Feels very similar to like Robert Sanchez for me at Chelsea, where you see Chelsea fans, and he's been very consistent this season, to be fair, Sanchez. I will give him that, but I'm always too. I'm not. I don't like to jump to praising Vicario that quickly because I know it'll probably come back and bite me. How do you feel about him? Because I feel like there's a lot of people that feel passionately we should move him on. I feel like a lot of people also think that he's one of our leaders, and maybe we couldn't go and get a better goalkeeper. How do you see it?
Honestly, for me, you hit the nail on the head. He is a walking PTSD, in my opinion, and
I agree.
Every time I feel like he puts in a good performance, you know there is a near post mistake, a long shot potentially going to be conceded over the next 3 games, and you can never get too high. And I said initially when Vicario came in, I was very impressed with him because he came from Empoli. I don't think anybody really knew much about him. Even like the most ardent Serie A fans were telling me, look, he's a decent goalkeeper, but even some of the Inter and Juve fans I've spoken to, they weren't too clued up on him. But he came in, and I think that kind of helped him a little bit because as the first season, second season went on, we were like, he's got some foundations we can build upon, but let's hope there's development that comes over the next, 2 or 3 years. And I think now we're kind of 3-4 years in, and I haven't seen that development. I haven't seen that development in his goalkeeping. I haven't seen that development in his ability to command his box from set pieces. I haven't seen that ability in his ability to play out from the back. And I always feel like it's almost a net negative sometimes having him in goal. And one of the big things I always say with goalkeepers is goalkeepers a lot of the times are responsible for how confident your defense is.
Yeah.
If your defenders in front of you can absolutely trust you behind them, they can sometimes play a level up because they just have a feeling of, we're a unit. Whereas the goalkeeper behind him, if he even gives an inclination of nerves, and I look at guys like Onana, I look at guys like De Gea, and I look at guys like Vicario, where they have that tendency to fill their defense with nerves, where Romero and Van der Ven know if they make one mistake, more than likely that's going to end up as a goal. And I think Vicario, there have been too many incidents like that where I can look at the back four in Porro, Udogi, Van der Ven, and Romero, and I'd be happy to go to war with them. I'd be happy to argue anybody with them. But Vicario is always the one that I'm looking at as like, you're the weak link. You're the weak link. And this season, more than ever, there have been far too many moments. So Inter Milan, as soon as you get that funds ready for me, we have a deal.
We have a deal. Yeah, I agree. I think I'm not even
looking to recoup what we paid. I just want to break even.
which was even what, like 18 mil, something like that. It wasn't crazy money. I'll take that right now. So in terms of goalkeepers, then, if you're moving him on, are you looking to bring a new goalkeeper in? Are you looking to trust Kinski? Do you think that Kinski should maybe go out on loan, or would you kind of keep him as the backup and look to bring another first choice?
Kinski is definitely a solid backup option, and I really got frustrated when there was talks of him getting loaned out to West Ham, because I thought, why on earth are we strengthening relegation rivals? Let's be honest. And I thought there were moments where he came in last year, early doors. I remember at Liverpool, he made his debut. He was brilliant. But then after that, he had one or two moments in Europe where he didn't really cover himself in glory, and we never really saw him since. I still think there's a decent, young, talented goalkeeper there who, for the cup games, I wouldn't mind seeing, in all honesty.
Yeah.
However, in terms of a Vicario replacement, I think the most natural and, for me, Tottenham-coded player, Trafford.
Yeah, 100%.
Trafford at Manchester City, I'm sorry, Donnarumma is not going anywhere over the next year or two. You are likely going to maybe miss out on England this summer because you made that move to Man City to... Initially, it was to be the first choice goalkeeper, and then he got blindsided as the backup. I think even if we can organise a loan deal for a season, just to show him, hey, look, we're not going to be in this slog relegation fight forever, but you can be one of the pieces that I think we can build the next 5-6 years around in that defence. Someone who can play on the ball, good reflexes, and I think that season coming up in Championship with Burnley, I think he had 16 clean sheets coming up that year. For me, I think that showed he can command a back line, and he's someone who I would look at as a replacement.
I agree. I think he's got strong personality, stronger than kind of people think. I remember people going back to the start of the season where we played them at the Etihad, and he made those couple of mistakes playing out from the back. I think it was the week after they played Brighton away, City, and they actually lost that game. But he responded really well in that game, made some brilliant saves there. He's clearly a very good shot stopper, so much better with his feet than Vicario. Like, I think we used to moan about Lloris's kicking, like back in the day, and that was a time where you didn't need your goalkeeper to be as good on the ball. And I do think some of it is like instructional. I feel like under Ange, like Vicario was never as bad on the ball because I think he had more confidence to just make the simple passes.
Yeah.
If we go back to a more possession-based system under whoever comes in next year, and we'll kind of touch on this probably throughout this video a bit, maybe you'll see him gain a bit more confidence on the ball. But I'm with you. I'm just like, get some money from Italy. Let's move on. The only thing I would say, I know Trafford's obviously a bit older than Kinski, I think. How do you feel about kind of having two young goalkeepers that are then maybe competing for that first? Are you all right with that?
Compete, lads. Welcome to competition. Like, I have no qualms if... And the thing is as well is, I know goalkeepers are like undroppable, if you like, or whatever. But if they're both of a quality standard, I am happy to have them competing until the pecking order sorts itself out. Because I remember, was it Ramsdale, Raya, when they came initially at Arsenal, that little situation, it always sorts itself out. I remember over a decade ago, was it Cech and Courtois at the same time, where Cech was arguably the best keeper for the past decade, but Courtois came in and just displaced him. So the cream will always rise to the top. That's my thing. So
agreed.
I never have an issue with multiple quality players competing for the same position. It will sort itself out naturally.
I'm fine with that. I think Brandon Austin's time at Spurs probably will maybe come to an end next season because it's very unlikely we're going to be in Europe.
Yeah, I feel bad for him because honestly, that kind of 2-3 game spell that he got given last year as well, he was brilliant. And I never feel like he's really been given a proper chance, despite some of these goalkeepers over the last year or two really, really looking bad. And it's so mad that you touched on Lloris just there quickly as well. Because I remember I loved Lloris maybe the first 5, 6 or 7 years. And then I remember the last 3 or 4 years he was there, I couldn't wait to get rid of this guy. I used to say he had baguette hands because the way the ball would just go through his hands all the time. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't wait till we upgrade on this. And I remember Vicario, that's the issue I have with Vicario, is initially I was like, oh, he's almost like a young Lloris. And maybe we can see that kind of superstar development that we saw with Lloris, where, you know, national team captain, France undroppable. But we just never saw that progression. And because of that dream being sold, I almost hold a little bit more anger towards Vicario. But let's move on from the goalkeepers.
I'm with you on that. Yeah, I think Brandon Austin I'll probably put in sell just because I think that he's not going to... Well, we're not going to be in Europe. We're not going to need him for the Champions League registration, Europa League registration or anything. I just feel like he's probably just going to be wasting his career if he stays here. Let's go...
He's 26 now as well.
Yeah, exactly. We'll always have the Hoffenheim game where the referee went to give the ball back to him and he went to shake his hand, wasn't it? Was that game? It was so funny. Let's. I want to talk about another quite divisive figure amongst the fan base at the moment, kind of topical because of the reports that came out around the wages yesterday. Conor Gallagher. Conor Gallagher has only obviously been at Spurs for 2 seconds, but I've seen some people saying that he is the worst bit of business that we've done ever, or like one of the worst bits of business in a long time. Take the money for them if it comes in the summer.
Very harsh.
Yeah. How do you feel about this?
I think some people forget Clinton and G, George Kevin and Kudu.
There is like circumstance and context. I'm annoyed about the Gallagher thing. I wouldn't say it's our worst ever signing, but 100%. Yeah, you're so right.
Don't get me wrong. Look, I fully am on board. I don't think he was a signing we needed. I don't think he was a signing we wanted, and I don't think he really addresses any issues in our current squad at the moment. However, can he play a role? Can he contribute to a squad? I definitely do think so, in all honesty. The problem is if you are going to keep him, and obviously it's highly unlikely we're going to pay him those types of wages and get rid of him 6 months later, he is going to be a squad player. The problem is I don't think he should be someone who is starting week in, week out. I don't think he should be someone who the midfield needs to be built around, because he doesn't provide any kind of superior midfield qualities, in my opinion. He's a busybody. He's someone who his energy, his legs, his desire to engage the press and things like that. And I always think those things work well when you come on as a substitute, whether it's locking down a game, whether it's trying to push on to the ascendancy and maybe take the game to the opposition. That's where I think he can play a part, more of a squad player. That's how I would look at him. But the fact that he's on those wages, honestly, I think is one of the most kind of biggest indictment of how this club is run, because for the best part of a decade we wanted an ambition of this club signing top players, of trying to sign elite level talent, and the only way you're going to do that is by paying big wages. And for a long time we had a starting 11, a core that was content with the measly wages we were giving them. What we needed added on top of that was players where we were going to break the wage barrier. And
exactly
the one that we go and do it for is Conor Gallagher. And I think that's what rubs everyone up the wrong way, because it's like, what happened to, like, you had Kane for 10 years. You didn't give him one running mate that was going to be paid to that degree, or supreme talent. You had Son. You had all of these guys for the past decade. Ericsson, Ali, Vertonghen, Alderweireld. You didn't want to surround them with 200k players, 250k players, and now you want to do it with arguably the worst team we've ever had in Premier League history. That's the kind of dichotomy that I think Spurs fans are kind of frustrated with, I'll be honest.
Mate, it's insane. Even when we got to the end under Conte, or like that summer under Conte, just after we got Champions League football, right? I know Kane and Son were obviously getting a little bit older and stuff like that, but we just got back in the Champions League. We'd been in the stadium for a good 3 years by that point. I know obviously COVID had its effect financially, and obviously I know building the new stadium has its effect financially, so maybe it was difficult at the time to go and build the squad around those guys to really kind of kick on. I understand that, but we'd been in the stadium by that point under Conte for like a decent amount of time. There was all this talk about the war chest and all that kind of stuff, and we just didn't go and do it. And that's why we've not really kicked on. We could have built a squad at that point. That's kind of even more of a crossroads moment for me than when we actually had a better team. Just because the financial situation come 2022, 2023 was so different. Like, that's when you go and do it. Yeah, like you hate to do this. Like, you look at our kind of biggest rivals in Arsenal and look at what they've done in terms of the wages kind of since that point and the trajectory of the two clubs. It's just night and day. There was that stat that came out that Spurs, I think, have spent almost the same amount of money as Arsenal since 2021. And they've maybe overpaid for certain players or whatever, but they've built a squad where everyone's happy. Everyone's on good money. Everyone's striving kind of towards the same thing. And that is where Tottenham have massively let themselves down and left themselves behind those kind of bigger teams, really. I'm on Gallagher generally, like, I'm the same as you, and people who watch this channel will know how I have felt about him. I think he's a decent player. I don't think he was the right kind of profile at all. There's been people talking about the wages thing and saying, well, if Poch is coming back in the summer, he was one of his favourite players at Chelsea, all that kind of stuff. I hear that, but that's not how you should think about, like, running your football club. Like, that's not how you should think about it. There's no guarantee that Poch ends up as the manager. Like, for what it's worth, I think there's a good chance it happens, but it's not guaranteed. And it's like, that's not enough of an excuse to give Conor Gallagher that level of money compared to some of the other players. And it's like, we missed out on Andy Robertson in January, right? But I guarantee we go and give him big wages in the summer when he's a free agent. It's like, again, those aren't the sorts of players that we should be doing it for. It's just like, it's insane.
I remember when those links happened, and that was my first thought, was like, yo, we are giving a midfielder who we don't need and a left back who is over the hill, essentially 400 grand between the two of them. Because Robertson is on about 200 grand at Liverpool, so he's not going to
they said it was going to be similar wages, didn't they?
So it's a case of, why are we breaking the bank for two players we clearly don't need and may not have uses after 2 or 3 seasons? So honestly, it's a weird recruitment model that we've had, I think, since 2020. And as you said, prior to, those 2015 to 2020, those glory potch years, as we call them, or whatever, I think everybody would have wanted more, but we all knew the stadium situation was kind of restricting us. It's after that. It's after COVID. It's after that where we saw, there is no real ambition. There is no real vision. There is no real direction as to what the recruitment is. For a small period, it was, we're going to sign a bunch of youngsters in Pape Sarr, Bergvall, Archie Gray. And then you go and sign Conor Gallagher for 200k, which basically, this is the complete opposite to what you were doing with those guys. So which direction is it you want to go in? And that's what constantly confuses me with Tottenham Hotspurs. And you could say it was under different sporting directors with Paratici and Johan Lang. I don't know, honestly, what this kind of vision we're trying to build towards is. Are we trying to be a top club? Are we trying to be a mid-table team? Are we trying to be a team that's just on the peripheries? Because this recruitment style doesn't indicate any of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's that lack of identity, really, that is really apparent at the moment at Spurs. Let's touch on some of the youngsters then. I'm going to kind of put a lot of the more prominent ones just into squad player off the bat, and then we can kind of move them up or down depending on what you think. Obviously, Luka Vuskovic, there's been talk the last couple of days that I think the Hamburg sporting director came out and said that he's definitely not going to be at Hamburg next season, so he's going to be coming back to Spurs.
Can't lie, I might be looking at Vuskovic moving up,
You think?
I might be looking at Vuskovic like a key player.
Let's get them in there. Who else is down here? Some of the other youngsters. Let's get Tell into here, and then we can kind of talk about them. But yeah, Odobert, obviously, I think should we just leave Odobert in squad player just because of the injury as well? It's just like such a. How did you actually feel about Odobert? Like, I'm
a huge fan of him. I think he's someone who very technical, very good with his close control. I think lacks maybe a little bit of the direct explosiveness that you want from a winger. But I think someone who definitely you can use in a squad. Someone who, can play either side of the wing as well, versatile. A lot of potential, but I definitely do worry about his kind of injury record. Obviously, big one this year, another big one last year as well. And I always think with those types of injuries, it's not the kind of physical impact it has, but the mental impact it
100%.
has. 100%. I think, is he going to still trust his body? Is he going to, go into those 50-50 challenges kind of second guessing himself now? And that can take a lot of weight from your game. So for me, it's a case of, I've said the same thing with Kulusevski, with Maddison. I know a lot of people are expecting those guys to come back and be the same players that they were before their injuries. But, mate, if you know anything about ACLs or big knee injuries, those things take time. And it's not always the physical, it's more the mental side of it. So I want to keep him around as a squad player for sure, but I definitely do think extra bodies do need to come in on that left-hand side to just, facilitate that. So you don't want to end up in a similar situation like Udogie, where you're relying on Odobert as your main left winger, and then before you know it, at some point in the season, he's out for 3 months again, and you've got absolutely nobody there. So, yeah, squad player for me, and similar situation with Tell, to be honest with you as well. And one thing I do like a bit more about Tell in the second half of the season is that he's embraced being a winger more than a centre forward. Because I think when he initially came in, he was of the idea of, I want to play as a 9, and apparently that was his issue at Bayern Munich as well, that he wants to play as a 9. But the fact that I think his skill set and his attributes are actually better suited as a winger. I think coming in off that left, I think his shooting ability is incredible, or outside the edge of the box, but we haven't been able to see that much. And I think the lack of opportunities Tell has gotten is very frustrating in my opinion, because I look at him and Odobert as similar level talents where They could be very, very good players. However, they're not going to get there if you don't give them the experience, if you don't give them the coaching. And at the moment, for the last 18 months, 2 years, I wouldn't say either one of them have been platformed correctly or given the correct opportunities. I think Odegaard this season has by force had to take, what little minutes he's getting. And because he's shown flashes in those moments, he's got more. With Tell, it's like he gets a flash, he scores a goal against West Ham, he has a good performance in Europe, gets yanked and never seen again for about 2 months. And it's a bit weird how both of them have been kind of developed. But I would look at them as two players that I think we can actually use and develop over the next year or two.
100%. And if you are thinking about it as someone like a Pochettino coming in the summer, or a more progressive kind of manager that has got a track record of working well with young players, you're looking at those two in terms of being able to step up, someone who wants to breathe more confidence and life into them. And I think that I still have some reservations about Pochettino. But when listening to him on that high performance podcast where he was talking about giving those young players the freedom and kind of the platform to go and perform, it's like where our squad has been, the point that our squad has been built to, that is the type of coach that I think we need right now from certainly a personality point of view. Like, you can say what you want about whether you think his football is going to scale up. I think there are people are right to kind of question that. But that's why I'm kind of pro the appointment and kind of going back and trying it again, just because of some of these younger guys that I think could really benefit from that environment. I'm with you. Like, I'm a big fan of both of them. I think that Odegaard, what impressed me most about Odegaard was that run that he actually had then before he went and got injured, which was such a shame that he's not then been able to kind of kick on and use that momentum, because he came in and replaced Kudus essentially on that right-hand side, and that's where he looked like he really gained a lot of confidence from that. And I think confidence is the thing that's been holding him back. You wouldn't say the same for Tell. You'd say actually opportunities are the thing that kind of held Tell back more so than the confidence, because he's clearly got that, and they've both clearly got ability, the pair of them. And it's it's a shame that we haven't seen more of either, really. So I would probably I'd be the same as you. I'd keep them in squad player. Now there's a lot of other guys obviously in here as well that are definitely worth spending some time talking on. Luka Vuskovic is one of them. We said with Vuskovic that that Hamburg have come out and said that they don't think he's going to be here next year. If Spurs are in the Premier League next year, which is kind of the context in which we're doing this video, how do you see Vuskovic stepping up? Because you said you think you might be able to see him step up into key player.
Honestly, everything I've seen about this kid scares me in terms of physically how strong he is, the way he's so dominantly aerially. I think the way he's a threat in the opposition box as well. I think that's something that thankfully Van der Ven and Romero have actually both improved over the last 2 years. And I've always said your centre-backs chipping in with 5 or 6 goals a season is actually so crucial and so key. Yeah. But I think just defensively how good he is. The one kind of area and weakness of his game is maybe mobility and kind of lateral kind of movements. I think in terms of defending wide areas, maybe he could improve on. But he's so young. He's still got so much upside, in my opinion. That being kind of the downside for me isn't a concern as well, because I think that kind of physical aspect is one of the easiest parts to coach. However, mentally, how he's able to kind of deal with every loan spell, every kind of, place he's been. And even coming through the Dinamo Academy, like, I remember when we signed him, I was like, let me do a bit of digging in on this kid, because we're signing apparently one of the best 16-year-olds in the world. So, and then you realize, he comes from basically a great lineage that has gone through the Dinamo, from his granddad to his dad to everybody's played at the club. So I was like, hey, this kid is actually destined for football greatness. And in honesty, I look at our situation. Look, we've got Danso, we've got Romero, we've got Van der Ven, we've got some quality players there. But let's not act like those guys could not potentially leave this summer as well. With kind of, Van der Ven, I feel like he's starting to look like he's maybe checking out of this season. Oh, it's just gone there. But he's starting to check out this season. And I think Romero, we've seen time and time again, he's kind of called out the board. So, look, if there is a departure, I think he could be there ready-made, ready to slot in. And I would not be surprised, honestly, if he takes to the Premier League like a duck to water.
I agree, especially with kind of the sort of football landscape of the Prem right now, and how centre-backs need to be physical, they need to be aerially dominant, the kind of importance of set pieces and all those kind of things. And the kid can play as well. He can play. He's very good with the ball at his feet. So I think that I could sort of see the same. I could see him just landing, one of our boys leaving in the summer, him kind of just coming in, being trusted, I think we'll probably go out and sign another centre back as well to replace Romero or Van der Ven, or both of them if they both potentially leave. But I think he will get given opportunities 100%. I could see the same thing. Like a few early Carabao Cup performances, maybe then we get an injury and he just has to come in, and I just don't think he'd be phased by it at all. So I could see that.
Yeah. My only concern with him would be is that he doesn't realize how good he is yet, if that makes sense, because he could also turn around in the summer and say, look, if you lot don't have a ready-made pathway for me to go into the first team this season, and I'm going to sit on the bench and wait till Romero Van der Ven depart, I'm off type thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in that situation, I'll be honest with you. I want to give him some kind of promise of you will be playing a part, even if it's, we're going to plug you into the six. Like some way, somehow, this kid has to be a part of our future. We can't afford to lose him, in my opinion.
Agreed. Yeah, totally agree. Are there any other of the youngsters you kind of want to talk about in detail? Maybe move them up. Obviously, we've spoken about Taylor and Odebear.
Archie Gray is an interesting one. I kind of want to get your thoughts on Archie Gray, because when we initially signed him, was one of the best talents coming up from the Championship. I thought would be a very good player, but I mean, the 18 months he's been here, I feel like he's played maybe 5 games in his natural position of centre mid, and all very good games as well, by the way. I remember the Newcastle game, brilliant. Earlier in the season, he had a little stretch. I think the first 2 or 3 games, Burnley in the opening day of the season.
Yeah, played in the Cup against Doncaster, I think.
Yeah, and every time he's played in that midfield role, I'm like, our number 6 is right there. And some way, somehow now, we've gone from banishing Bissouma for 6 months to him looking like the answer to our number 6 problems.
Yeah.
But what do you kind of make of him, and how do we get the best out of him? Because this season I'm starting to see Spurs fans not turn on Archie Gray, but just be like, what the hell is this guy good at? Because we keep chucking him out right back, left back, centre back, positions that he is not favoured in my opinion, positions that don't make the most of his skill set. I think the way he's for me a very natural midfielder, but because he's able to throw a tackle around, he could play in defence. But what do you make of him? Do you rate him, or are you someone who's you're not really too keen on him?
No, I rate him. I do really rate him. I think obviously coming up from Leeds last season, he did play a fair bit of fullback for Leeds last season, but you saw him they were a team that wanted to dominate the ball. He'd come in from right back into the centre of midfield, almost invert like we were seeing, which is why I thought he was such a kind of smart signing for Ange, really, in terms of us being able to do that, providing cover for Porro, but having the long-term pathway to be our midfielder. That obviously didn't happen because of the injury situation that we found ourselves in. And again, it's not happened really this year consistently, even though Thomas Frank has given him more opportunities in midfield than what Ange Postecoglou did. Mainly because Ange had his hands tied behind his back in that aspect. And I think there's been games, especially in the Champions League this season, where he's really shown his credentials. I love his character. I think, although sometimes you see him quite quiet and understated on the pitch, I think he can be a leader for Spurs as time goes on as well. There's something I really like about his personality. I just think he needs more exposure. It's a bit like exposure therapy, isn't it? I think he needs to just go and play games in there to really feel it. I think we need to go and sign another midfielder that can do the things that we've been crying out for in terms of deep line playmaker, get on the ball, play on the half turn, play through the lines, those kind of things. But I think that as like a box-to-box 8, if Spurs are going to go to a 3-man midfield next season, I almost think that's where he's at his best. Using his legs to get up the pitch, can affect it in the final third a little bit as well, making runs in the channels. I still see a bright future for him here, and I'd like to see him get given even more opportunities next year. Yeah. But I don't really buy into this whole thing of people not rating him, to be honest. I don't really get it.
Yeah. I honestly, that's what I think. I think sometimes as well with the defensive midfielders or the defenders, especially the young ones, sometimes because they're not getting goals or assists and things like that, it's hard to visually almost put the metrics on them. So people are quick to almost dismiss them. A defensive mid is not putting up assist numbers. It's like, what are you actually expecting from these players? But I just wish this season we'd seen more of Bergvall and Sarr together in that midfield, because that is a midfield combination that I think really works. And I just think for so long we were kind of buried with Palini and Bentancur, and then after that it was a case of Conor Gallagher's come in, and we've never really been able to see some of these youngsters be given that kind of opportunity to flourish, if you like. And that's what's frustrated me the most, I think, with some of these players.
Agreed. Before we move on to Bergvall, Sarr, etc., because I think the midfield's really, really interesting, especially if we're not going to be in Europe next season, lads, unless we're in the Champions League, let's face it. In terms of the opportunities for games to kind of go around, there's a lot of players that are still going to be here. So I'm guessing that you would move on Bissouma, you would move on Bentancur, and you would move on Paulinho probably as well, right?
100%. Those three for me, yeah. Bissouma, it's like, I love you, brother. Like, genuinely, I think he is the answer to our midfield. But the problem is, well, we're going into year 4 now, and you still haven't given me anything more than those first 10 games under Ange. And I will never forget, he randomly got himself sent off against Luton, and it's like I have never seen Bissouma ever again. That version of Bissouma anyway. And the inconsistencies, there's only so much you can put with it. I appreciate him coming back into the second half of the season and actually, you know, putting himself in the shop window, as I would like to call it, because now we can maybe have some suitors in the summer, because January, there seemed like nobody was interested in taking Bissouma off our hands. Similar case with Palhinha. I think Palhinha is... I actually like Palhinha as a player. He plays the game how I personally like to play the game. Nasty, aggressive, on the front foot, but he's limited. That's my issue for me. And I think if we want to be a better team, if we want to be more controlling in midfield, if we want to be more dominant in possession, I don't think we can hang our hat on a player like Palhinha. And I think him turning 30 this summer, I think the rumoured fee is between 25 and 30 million pounds. I think that money could be better spent on someone who actually fills a criteria that we need in that midfield. So it just doesn't make sense. And Bentancur, similar thing. I honestly thought at one point Bentancur was our answer to Moussa Dembele. When he first came in those 18 months, those black boots he wore, the way he was gliding past players, dribbling, he had actually like courage in his passing, because he would play those eye-to-needle passes. He'd do these deep late runs into the box. And I was like, my God, he's almost like Moussa Dembele plus. Then came the injuries, and not just the Matty Cash one, but it was just a multiple. I remember when he went up for a header against Liverpool in the Carabao Cup semi-final, and he knocked himself out, and
he just couldn't catch a break, could he? Really?
Yeah, there's just been genuinely. That's what I've always said about him. He's the unluckiest player I've ever seen at Tottenham Hotspur, because as soon as he gets a bit of run of form going, it's just kaput. And then this season, it's almost like he got lumped in with that Palhinha midfield, and his stocks have just dropped completely. And in all honesty, I think if a good offer did come in this summer, I would happily offload him as well. I was surprised that we gave him a new contract, but I guess that's to kind of protect the asset, if you like.
I agree. So would you kind of put him in that, just move him on, or would you be open to keeping him and only sell him if the right offer comes in, or should we be pushing him out the door?
Because I can't see Conor Gallagher being moved on in the summer. If you've got Archie Gray, Bergvall, Pape Sarr, and Conor Gallagher, I think that is enough of those types of profiles, those 6'8" hybrids, if you like.
Yeah.
And I think Bentancur, keeping him on is just for what? Do you know what I mean? And since we're not going to be in Europe next year, I don't feel like it's a necessity. And in all honesty, that looks like one of those players that I would look at and think, you can actually make us a bit of money. I can see someone like Napoli taking a punt on you or something like that. Or
20 mil, something like that.
Inter Milan coming in with a 25 million bid. Please, I will take it.
Yeah, I agree. I would kind of keep him in this bracket, just because I think it's important that we move players like that on. I think if the right offer comes in, I think there's a few players that I think might divide a bit of opinion on that, in terms of like, maybe you want to keep them, but you don't really see that place for them necessarily in the squad. I think Bentancur doesn't quite fall into that. I think he's I think those three should just be moved on. I wanted to speak about, obviously, Lucas Bergvall is a player that, again, we haven't really seen the best out of under Thomas Frank this season before Frank was sacked. Misprofiled massively. Mate, it was a joke, absolute joke. When I remember someone brought up his data sort of ring from last season compared to this year, and you see like the progressive passes, the progressive dribbles, all of that just massively disappear. He's not a number 10 that wants to win second balls. He's a central midfielder, a number 8, I think, as well, but likes to get involved in the first phase of the build-up. Sometimes his overconfidence does lead him into situations where he might give the ball away. Maybe we overrate Bergvall to a tiny degree because of that, but I love his bravery. I think he has got the ceiling. Like, his ceiling, I genuinely think he can be as good as he wants to be. And I think next season, say if it was Pochettino or another manager that works really well with young players that wants to play front-footed, aggressive football, I think if he gets a season where he's relatively injury-free, because again, that's something that's really hampered him the back end of the sort of back end of Frank's reign, I think you could just see him massively go to another level. Would you say that he sort of stays there, or could you see him being a key player for us next year?
I think he stays there, and for me, that's the challenge for him, is can you push yourself to become that key player? Because he's the one I look at as like, you might have the most upside of all the youngsters. You are the one that I look at as like, you could potentially be world class if you really engage. And I think one thing, I'll be honest with you, I've always loved that Spurs is a ball carrier. That's why I like Ben when he first came in. That's why Moussa Dembele is my favorite player. Modric, these types of players who can get the ball in that first phase and literally turn defense into attack. And as you said, I think Bergvall for me is an 8. He's not a 10. He's not a left winger. He's not a defensive mid. He is a pure 8 who carries the ball well. And I think for me, it's adding to almost both ends of the boxes, whether that's being able to defend very well and also add that final third pass, because otherwise you end up being stuck in that kind of purgatory that I say. Mateo Kovacic, it was very much like that, where great between the two boxes, but kind of ineffective on either ends of the pitch. And you kind of almost become a little bit of a nothing player in that case. So he doesn't want to fall into that trap. So for me, I think the important thing for him would be is to provide some type of value from deep. And I think that's why I've always had Pape Sarr a little bit ahead of him, because for me, Pape Sarr is able to chip in with those 1 or 2 goals, is able to deliver that late run, and sometimes even just to make that direct run into the box to cause a bit of chaos, to open up a bit of space for Solanke and Richarlison. And a lot of the times that's where I feel like Richie's goals have come from, is someone else creating chaos, and then he just gets a little bobble.
Beneficiary of it. Yeah.
Beneficiary of it. But I think Bergvall doesn't do enough of that, in my opinion. And that's where I kind of would challenge him next year and say, do you know what? You're going to get significant minutes. And I think that is one thing I will say is under both Ange and Frank, they've both given him minutes. Ange maybe less so, but now it's a case of, can we platform him the best to see what his level is, if that makes sense.
Agreed. I think he's just going to take the right manager with him, and sparks just fly. I think we really saw Ange got the closest to that out of any manager that's managed him for Spurs. Yeah. And obviously, it would be interesting to see if he does come back. I think he's probably out for another month, maybe, or so. I don't think he's one of them, the kind of next cabs off the rank. But yeah, I agree. I could see him making that step up into key player, but I still think to have him get him as much football as he can next season is going to be the key thing. I want to talk about, obviously, there's a couple of guys in here. We've got Sousa and Mikey Moore as well. We've got some of the other youngsters who won't spend as much time on that, I think, can all either be loaned or moved on. Would you like to keep Mikey Moore around next season, do you think? Do you think this is the season for him to have that? Or do you think the fact that we're probably not going to be in Europe, not Europa League, not Conference League, give him minutes?
I want to see him go out on loan. I'll be honest with you. I think would
you scale it up from the SPL?
Yes.
Where would you sort of see him going?
I want to see him go to a Premier League team. I'll be honest with you. I want to see him go to a fellow Premier League team and see how he actually handles the league. I don't want to see him in the Championship. I don't want to see him in Scotland. I don't want to see him in a foreign league. I want to see him in the Premier League, the league that he's going to be playing in. And I really look at him as like a long-term option. Look, we work with Tell, we work with Odegaard, we see what they can maybe do for the next season or two. But if those guys don't work out, at least we've developed this one right in the background, giving him in the right environment. And that way,
we're probably going to sign another winger in the summer anyway on that side. So
100%. So for me, it's like there's too many youngsters on that left-hand side if we were to bring him back. Then you've got Tell, Odegaard, and Mikey Moore, which I'll be honest with you, it's going to be a musical chairs between them all season long, trying to figure out who's the real starter. So for me, for his development, for his confidence, I love what he's doing at Rangers. Great club, great kind of institution where there's pressure to win every single week. And those fans have really, bought into him. And I love that for him. Now, I want to see him come to a Premier League team, whether that's a newly promoted side, whether that's, Brentford or someone like that, somewhere where he's going to be guaranteed minutes. I do not want a Hyuk-Min Yang situation where we send him, where we disrupt basically his loan spell, which is going well. And then send him somewhere where basically he's just going to be rotting on the bench. Because Hyuk-Min Yang started the season, just to briefly touch on him as well as one of the youngsters, look brilliant, bro. Every week when I heard Portsmouth results, I was like, yo, this kid, we might have Son 2.0 right here.
Yeah.
And randomly, in January, I was like, why the hell are we ending a good loan, which is going well, and then sending him to Coventry, where now I don't even think he's completed 90 minutes in total.
No, and they signed, I think that week they were also signing Roman Esse from Palace. So it was like, he's going to be then competing with him, who's already played at Championship level for Millwall and did well, which is why he got the move to Palace in the first place. That's one thing that I think there's probably a few that we can just chuck in here quickly. Which I'd probably loan Yang out again. I'm with you on Mikey Moore. I think Souza is probably one that I think should maybe go out on loan next season. I think there's Tyrese Hall. I really want to see Tyrese Hall get given a chance in pre-season under a new manager. To be honest, I think
you, Ben.
I think there's something there. I do think there is something there. You know,
I can't lie. I look at him as like, is the answer to our deep lying, playmaker that we talk about? Is it right under our nose? Because I'm not joking. Every time I watch this kid, I'm like, bro, this is Basuma, but 10 years ago. Like, the composure he plays with, the technical ability, the way he can drive with the ball, the way he can find a pass. And I've even seen him pop up with a few goals at Notts County as well. Some nice ones. I'm like, yo, I really hope he doesn't get overlooked and almost get thrown into that championship bargain bucket and just gets forgotten. But I think there's a serious talent there. I'll be honest with you. Maybe, I think you're right. Maybe give him another loan. Maybe a Premier League loan.
Yeah, top end Championship or lower Premier League. I think for him and Mikey, I think it'd be the same. Obviously, there's a lot more hype around Mikey Moore, and I do totally get that. But I'd be the same. I'd be the same as you. I think with a couple of these lads, I think with Will Lancashire, I just don't think he's going to get his opportunity. So I'd probably, for his own sake, probably sell. Yeah. I think Jamie Donnelly is another one who is technically a really talented footballer, but I just think physically, I'm not sure in the Premier League whether he's going to be able to hack it. So I'd probably move on. Alfie Dorrington again has never really been able to make it stick on certain loans. So again, I'd look to sell. Callum Olasese is one that I'd definitely loan. I would not sell him. I feel like there's a player. Obviously, he's been in and around the first team setup a little bit more this year. Done really well in the UEFA Youth League for Spurs as well. Yeah. I think loan him out to a Championship side, maybe League One, see what happens. I think there's definitely a player there.
100%. I think with all the others, they're getting loan spells. Mikey Moore, Tyrese Hall, they're doing well. He's the only one that's kind of been at the club the entire time. I would love to see what he can kind of do, once he's given the reins at a loan club potentially.
Yeah, agreed. And we've got Ashley Phillips as well, who's done quite well at Stoke this season. I think if you could maybe try and get some money off the back of that, I would probably look to do that. You take that. Dane Scarlett, I just think that, again, I feel sorry for Scarlett. Obviously, he's on loan at Hibernian at the moment. Has done okay since he started there, but I think this is the summer where you've probably
have to move on.
You probably move him on, because I think Spurs. Obviously, we'll talk about it obviously when we come to the strikers, but I think there's an interesting conversation to be had around what Spurs do there. Alfie Devine, I think, is probably another one where he's done okay on loan where he's been, but I think try and get some money. And then Takai, I think I'd probably loan Takai. Would you? I sort of forgot he even existed, to be honest.
Who?
Yeah, literally.
We signed him 6 months. I didn't see a sim play for a single minute. January, he gets loaned out on loan to Frankfurt. And then now I'm just like, okay, I guess we have another centre-back.
Has he even played? Has he even played over there? I don't think I've heard of him since he left.
Let me just double-check in the background here. 1 sec. Takai.
Oh, it's Mönchengladbach, isn't it? He's played 6 games. He's only started 3 of them. So he's come off the bench in a few.
I see a 4.9 there against Frankfurt.
Yeah.
Hey, it's rough.
Oh, dear. And that was a start as well. That was a start. They lost 3-0. So,
I think another loan move would work well for him.
I think so. And then we're more into the first teamers. Perhaps Sarr, let's talk about him, because obviously we kind of got away from the midfield conversation a bit, but I want to bring it back because me and Seb were talking about this on a podcast that we did recently about the fact that is there a home for him here next season? I love Pat Matasar, but is he going to almost look at it as a bit of a crossroads moment with the other young midfielders that we've got? Spurs probably going to go and want to sign another midfielder in the summer as well to kind of play in that deep line role. Is he going to maybe think, am I better off maybe moving on? Are they going to put more stocks into the likes of Gray and Bergwijn? They just signed Conor Gallagher, who plays in my position. I think Sarr is better than Gallagher 100%, even as a 10. And he offers you more in terms of being more of a complete player that can play deeper if you need him to. I worry a little bit about the Sarr situation with this Gallagher signing, that he might look to move. And if the right offer comes in for the club, do they then take that?
Yeah, I actually think this is our first entry for if the right offer comes in, because
I think so too.
Personally, I'm a huge Pape Sarr fan. I've always said of all the midfielders, he is almost the one that I would guarantee a start every week, because I feel like he is almost like the jack of all trades, and he might not be a specific master at anything, but for me, he does everything to a very good level. And I think that's very rare and hard to find. And especially when you have kind of the cocktail of midfielders that we do have. He is someone that I look at, I'm thinking, one, he could bring in potentially a big fee. Two, there would definitely be demand for him out there. Three, as you mentioned, I do think he is going to look at the situation and say, Bergvall, Gray, Conor Gallagher, another potential midfielder coming in the summer as well. I don't know where his minutes are going to come from. And his minutes, I feel like, are the ones that are going to be most eaten, in my opinion. So
I agree.
I'd look at someone like a Marseille. Would build your team around someone like a Pape Sarr. Like, for me, I think he is someone who deserves to spread his wings. I wouldn't sell him willingly. No. But as we said in that bracket, if the right offer did come in, I think I would potentially look at it, not just for our benefit, but also for his benefit, because I do actually like him, man.
I agree. Yeah, this isn't. I don't want to do this. Like, I love Sarr. I think he's better than Gallagher. I think that he's still better than Archie Gray, 100%, and he's better than Bergvall. It's just the ceiling of Bergvall and what he can offer. But it's just I just feel like we're going to be at this crossroads a little bit with him, especially with no even Europa League or Europa Conference League football to keep all these young midfielders happy, where you can really spread the minutes out. I struggle to see where those minutes come. Dragusin, sell. I think he just got to go straight in there. Like, it's right for him. It's right for Tottenham. I think
the less said, the better on that
to move him on. He doesn't suit.
Look, his agent.
Oh mate, his agent. Like, I feel a bit sorry for Dragusin, because I feel like he cops a lot of heat from our fan base because of his agent's mouth. And look, Dragusin can control that, obviously, but I feel like that's people won't give him any credit for absolutely anything, and they'll just say that he's rubbish. And no. He's not great, obviously, I don't think. And I think that game against Arsenal at the weekend highlighted what he can do well, but also what his massive weaknesses are. And if Gyökeres can kind of get on top of you in the way that he did, it's not looking great. And I just think this is the summer we've got to move him on. Should have probably been last summer, but obviously he got the injury, which held him back. I think that's probably a fairly straightforward one, right?
100%. No arguments there.
Yeah, I think Ben Davies is I think his contract's up anyway at the end of the summer. Mawani, as far as I'm aware, there's no option with Kolo Mawani, but I feel like he hasn't really done anywhere near enough to be able to want it. Although, I mean, we'll see what happens back end of the season, but
that is one of the few things I'm looking at Tudor, where I'm like, brother, you've worked with this guy before, so you better be able to get a tune out of him. And first game, he's already got his first Premier League goal, so I only hope...
Should have had two as well.
Yeah, should have had two. Gabriel, brother, nasty work. But I wouldn't take up the option anyway. I don't think he's done enough. And even if he went on a little bit of a mad run from now till the end of the season, he's not for me, I'll be honest with you.
Agreed. There's a couple of other guys here as well that are sort of still snuck in and around. I think Solomon's on loan, isn't he? So I think that's one where just there's no need to keep him around next year. Veliz, I think, actually has gone in January, right? I think he did go in the end somewhere. So he's obviously in that cell. And then let's talk about, I feel like Mawani is a good segue to talk about the two strikers with Richarlison and Solanke. I'm going to pop them obviously in here for now and we can kind of move them down. I think Solanke, obviously, you saw his importance to the team when he came back off the back of his injury. He came back a lot sharper than I thought he was going to. It was a big miss not to be able to have him around for the North London derby or as much as we would have wanted to, but Mawani did it well to kind of fill his place. I still think he's our best striker. I think he's still very underrated, and I think if he can stay fit next year with good players around him, get a good run in the team, then I think I would definitely look to keep him as certainly going into the transfer window as our main number 9. And if they want to go out and buy another striker that can really compete with him and move on Richarlison, that's how I see it. Are you similar to that?
100%. For me, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fan of anybody in our front line. And I think at the start of the season, I actually had a conversation with Kish. Yeah. It was like October times where I said to him, I look at our centre forwards and I can't see a single one of them finishing the season with 15 Premier League goals. I said, I've got Solanke, who I rate very highly, but at the moment we've only got one great Premier League season in his entire career, and it wasn't for us. And I said he came into us, great hold-up play, great link-up play, his passing ability, his ability to just be that kind of glue at the top of the pitch, perfect for what we needed. But I need goals. And then this season, he's shown once again, I can't rely on his fitness. So for me, I've kind of gone up and down with Solanke because when he came back, I was like, look, this is exactly what we've been missing. This is what we need. This is what we need to build around. But then when I hear he's missing the North London derby with a sore throat or tonsillitis, I'm like, brother, come on, man. Like, this is the biggest game. We could potentially be facing relegation after this. And the fact that he came on pissed me off even more because I'm like,
surely you're fit enough to start.
If you're fit enough to come on as a substitute, you should be fit enough to start. Do you know what I mean? And that just got me up the wrong way. And I'm not saying move on from him, but I fully agree with what you said. It's go into the summer with him as the main striker. But I'm definitely going out to sign a number 9 to compete with him, or if not, try and maybe squeeze him out. Because let's not forget, that's our record signing, bro.
Yeah.
Like, we can't just sit here and say, he links up, play well. The guy is 28 as well. We don't have time for him to develop. And, brother, we need you now.
Exactly.
Right now. So for me, it's a case of, if the right offer did come in, I would not turn my nose up at it, but it would have to be the right offer. But I'm happy to keep him as a squad player. Richarlison, I have never been a fan of Richarlison. I promise you from the
kind of fallen in love and then fallen out of love very quickly. He's one of those guys.
There was never even a fall in love. The day he signed, I remember I did a stream with Tapping Tobes, and I said to you, you will pay for your sins for running this propaganda on Richarlison. Because I've always said...
Was he?
Oh, he was Richarlison FC. He was doing the whole ooh. I said, hey. And the worst thing is, I get it. It's the cute celebrations. He's someone who is very fiery, very passionate. And I think that definitely gets fans on board. And we've seen that with Lamella, with Lucas Moura. Those types of characters always get like a cult within our fan base. And for me, Richarlison, I was always like, he's not a clinical finisher. He's not a great hold-up player. He's not a great link-up player. He doesn't run into the channels well. He doesn't really play on the wings. He's not really a number 9. Like, he's just a bit of a nothing player, in my opinion. And that was always my thing. I was like, what is his specialty? What is his go-to thing? And it was always aggression and passion and pressing. And I'm like, what is he, a fucking defensive midfielder? Like, this is a striker.
You always feel like players like that, it's like they're overcompensating for something. It's like they kind of have to make themselves a cult hero by doing that because they're very limited in other areas of the game.
Exactly. So for me, it's one of those things where I've always wondered how the hell we have managed to summer after summer keep him on. And I'm like, bro, that's a good 30 million sell you could easily make, in my opinion, because I'm sure there are plenty of other clubs out there who probably rate him and still think they can get a tune out of him. But in my opinion, he has never been worth the time or the hassle.
Agreed. Yeah, I didn't like the signing at the time. There have been moments where, like I said, I've kind of I have fallen for it, but then you fall out of love with him as quickly. He's just one of those kind of players. He's so Tottenham in that way. But yeah, I'd be sold. Do you think there's a world in which, kind of just quickly, just on this season and the kind of running a little bit? Obviously, Tudor does like to play the 3-4-3. Do you think there's a world in which we see Solanke and Mawani kind of play up top together in a 3-5-2 and just have one midfielder maybe playing behind them in Javi? That's something I would like to see.
I would love to see that. I actually think that if we have everybody fit, I actually think we have the perfect system for a 3-5-2. And I think a lot of Spurs fans were angrier that Frank didn't use his own system earlier in the season. And when he did use it, it was usually to be very pragmatic. But honestly, I think, seeing those two together, bro, just try and get a tune out of them from now till the end of the season. You've worked with Kolo Muani before, and Solanke, he needs that kind of stretcher runner games to really hit the ground running, in my opinion.
Yeah. Let's talk about Romero and Van der Ven then, because obviously two guys that you very much want to be key players of the setup next year, but they both clearly are not happy at the football club. I'm not even sure bringing in someone like Mauricio Pochettino would do enough to keep them for them to want to stay around. Is there an argument to say that you would just be quite happy if we move on from this situation, take as much money as we can, and go and buy another couple of centre-backs? Has that kind of entered your mind, or would you fight tooth and nail to keep them at the football club?
No, not for me, I'll be honest with you. For me, if I'm being truthfully honest, like, I've seen Ledley King, I've seen, Vertonghen, Alderweireld. I'll be honest with you, as bad as we have been, these two might be my two favourite centre-backs that I've seen. Because for me, Romero just embodies everything I want in a centre-back. The desire, the passion, the passing ability, the aerial ability, the dominance that he plays with. That's how I feel like centre-back should play. But then the perfect yin to that yang for me is Mickey van der Ven as well. Someone who, for me, is a unicorn of a defender. I've said countless times, like the ultimate insurance policy. The reason why we've been able to play such a high line under Ange was a lot of the times purely because we've got a secret weapon like Mickey van der Ven. Now, the difference is I think Van der Ven, as much as he's kind of thrown his toys out of the pram on a few occasions, and as much as there would probably be more demand for him, he is the one that I would buy hook or by crook. You are forced to stay. You're not going anywhere. I'm sorry. Liverpool, Barca, whoever can come in. If it's not 200 million, I don't want to hear it. That's the right offer for me when it comes to Van der Ven, because he's that unique of a profile. Romero, on the other hand, I think we are almost in less control of. And I know he signed a new contract last year, but my fear with him is if he doesn't get a move, could he turn this club into a toxic environment? Because I do think he does have that kind of sway. And I think Ange even touched on it in his overlap interview as well, where Romero has a lot of sway in that dressing room. Romero's mood sometimes dictates that dressing room, and a lot of the guys in that dressing room are scared of him. And I rightly so, I understand, because the guy seems like an absolute nut job. But that would be my fear, is how much impact that would have on the dressing room if Romero was to kick up a stink in the summer and say, you know what, I want out. And between the two of them, he's the one that I could see more likely saying, you know what, I'm done with this kind of project. I don't want to waste my prime years fighting relegation in Premier League. Let me go to Atletico Madrid or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Van der Ven is the one that I would absolutely bet my house on, because I think Danso and Vukcevic could also potentially come in and offer me a bit of what Romero has. However, if we lost Van der Ven, I don't think we can find a like for like or even close to it.
I agree. I've always rated Romero that bit higher than Van der Ven, just because I think Romero is a more kind of complete package, and I think what he gives you on the ball, and I think he's a better defender than Van der Ven as well. But Van der Ven is so much harder to replace. And I think with Romero, like I've come out to bat for him for such a long time. I really like him, and I don't think some of the criticism that he's been given over the years is fair. I think a lot of Spurs fans would agree with that. But at this point, I'm just a little bit tired of it. And I think if decent money came in the summer, as much as I would want him to stay, 100%, I wouldn't be that mad at just going, look, let's end this kind of soap opera now. Let's make sure we kind of keep Van der Ven, because he's younger, he is more unique, and find someone to partner Mickey and try and keep him happy and move Romero on. I don't want to do that, but I wouldn't be mad at it, if that makes sense. Would you?
What would you say is like
such a tough one?
What would you say is like a good fee for Romero?
With that new contract, I'd say 65 to 70 mil.
Oh, okay.
I maybe 75.
I was thinking in that more 70, 75 range, but I can hear that. Those are all valid reasons, and it'd be a tough one, honestly, because honestly, it sounds weird because look, we've had some horrible finishes with these guys. We've had some leaky defenses with these guys, but I don't know what it is. I watch both of them and I just love them, honestly, both Van der Ven and Romero. And I think so often they've been let down by systems, by structures. And don't get me wrong, they've had some nasty moments themselves. Romero a couple of times has cost us this season single-handedly. But it would be a disappointment to see one of them leave in the summer. But I think it is a reality of our situation at the moment.
Okay, cool. Okay. So I'm still just stuck on where to put Romero, you know. I just
The thing is what we could do is like Solanke. We go into the summer where he is a key player.
Yeah.
But if the right offer does come in, he could slide out. Do you know what I mean? But I think that because if the right offer comes, I almost don't want to put the offer out there.
I get what you mean.
I need Romero to instigate an exit, or I need clubs to tempt me with an offer. I don't want to put him out on the market.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very valid. Let's leave him in there, but with that context of what we've just spoken about. I want to quickly touch on. Let's get Kevin Danso straight into squad player. I don't think any more needs to be said about it.
Love him, by the way, Mr. Reliable.
Yeah, mate. I think having him back, so him and Porro, anyone watching this before the Fulham game, him and Porro are back for Fulham, which I think is a massive plus. Porro, and let's talk about the fullbacks quickly and save the attackers till the end. So, Destiny Udogie, I think, is a really interesting one because I love him. I think at his best, he is so key to us. in terms of getting up and down that flank, holding the width, allowing Xavi to kind of come in and play his best kind of football coming in off that left-hand side, gives him the space that for him to thrive into. He's a very decent defender. I think he can improve in the final third in terms of his crossing.
Yeah.
But it is just that fitness, and I just don't ever feel like we're going to see the best of Udogie consistently in a Spurs shirt. So do you sell him? Do you keep him, but if someone does sniff around him, make it almost not your problem anymore? Or do you just make him a squad player and go out and sign a left-back of equivalent quality that can actually properly compete with him? Because that's where I'm at.
Yes, 100%. That's the option I would take. Because for me, I don't think we've even seen the best version of Udogie at our club yet. So to get rid of him without having seen it, at least with like a Van der Ven, a Romero, I can say, all right, they've given me some highlight moments where I can say, okay, if they moved on, you gave me something. Udogie, it's like flashes, bro. I remember that first season he came. I honestly thought we signed one of the best left backs over the next 5 years in the world. Like, I was like, this guy's going to be there with the likes of Nuno Mendes and all of these guys. He's going to be in those conversations. But one way or another, injuries has held him back, whether it's confidence being knocked or his body just not being able to hold up. I would love to see someone of the same caliber quality being signed, and they just kind of rotate and share those minutes.
Yeah, I'd be exactly the same. How do you feel about Porro and Spence then? Would you still... I still think Porro is I wouldn't quite put him in key player, but I think when Spurs are playing well, he is such a massive part of that. And I still would have him as my starting right back over Spence. I think Spence should be the backup to him.
I think the problem with Porro is he sometimes has like these bad games or bad spells, and they're really bad when he has them.
Yeah.
But the problem is I think similarly like Van der Ven, he is such a unique player. He's almost like a one-man chance creating machine is the way I look at it. And I remember I used to call him like Trent Light in terms of the way he's from right back. He can actually create chances, whether it's through his variation in passing, his set piece ability as well. And I look at him as like, okay, there are areas of your defensive game that I think you definitely massively need to improve on, but you are actually a weapon within the side. And as you said, if he's in a functioning team and he's got a good tactical setup from the manager, I think he's someone very, very key for us. But the way he has kind of been in and out of form this season, I guess it's kind of left him in a position where you have to look at him as a squad player and rotate him with Spence.
Yeah. If you were thinking about it through the lens of Poch coming back in the summer, right? Obviously, we know that Poch at Chelsea, which is kind of where we've last seen him in England, the way that he used his fullbacks, towards the end of the season, Cucurella started to invert a lot from left back to help kind of overload the midfield and progress through there. Do you think we could sort of see him maybe go with Spencer right back, try and get him into central areas, or get Porro there, or do it from the left-hand side with Udogie potentially? I'm just thinking because, again, you go back to Poch at Spurs in those years, and Walker kind of bombing up and down the flank as well. I think it's good to have the options that we've got, really, I guess is kind of what I'm trying to say.
I absolutely hate this inverted fullback nonsense. I'll be honest with you. I cannot stand seeing a fullback taking up midfielder positions. Brother, get chalk on your boots and get down the byline. That's your job. And I always feel like, look, a lot of these fullbacks that are being asked to invert, and I see, Calafiori do it at Arsenal. He does it okay. I see Timber do it at, what's his name? He doesn't do it very well. Gusto being forced to do it. He doesn't do it very well. I don't look at either Spence or Porro as like inverted players, in my opinion. Spence, his biggest attribute is his speed. Get him down the byline and beating a man 1v1. Meanwhile, Porro, his passing ability is the best thing. Get him out wide. That way you can stretch the play. You can open the game up. I think everybody gets so infatuated with clogging up the center of the pitch, and there's so many bodies there sometimes it just becomes a chaotic game. I still think you need those kind of specialists in wide areas, and especially take into account our wingers are usually inverted wingers. Whether that's Odobert on the left and Kudus on the right, or Kulusevski on the right, they're always going to be cutting in. There is literally no width if you're asking your fullbacks to cut in. And I think that has been one of my biggest problems about Jed Spence playing at left back sometimes, where I feel like we've got two right footers playing out on the left-hand side, and it just becomes so narrow because every time they get the ball, their natural instinct is to just go inside or to go backwards because they're not used to using their left. They're not used to going on the outside. And you see the game just slowly, bit by bit, just become clustered in. And now that it just becomes this pinball machine where nobody's able really to get control of the game. And I really think it's important stretching games and having your fullbacks or your wingers on those kind of wide areas to be able to give you some kind of breathing space whenever things get too, claustrophobic in the middle.
Yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree. I think we need to go out and sign another left back that can compete with a Doggy. Then once you've got that, you've got four kind of different. I think if we can go and get a left back that, like you said, can do what Spence can do on the left and kind of get to the byline, cross, clip balls in, hold that kind of width, then you've got four really nice options for those two positions, I think. So yeah, I totally agree. Then we've kind of saved the best till last in a way in terms of the attackers. Now, obviously, Dane Kulusevski and James Maddison, long-term injuries at the moment. Maddison might return before the end of the season. Kulusevski is probably unlikely. And then we've got Xavi and Kudus as well, the two players that were kind of brought in to replace them in the summer. How do you see this whole situation playing out? And how much of a fan of Xavi are you? Do you think next year is going to be the year that he really explodes? What do you think is kind of missing from his game at the moment? And do you think he will be the key attacker for Spurs next season? Or do you think once Maddison comes back, he might start to sit on the bench a little bit more? But again, Maddison, injury problems, his ACL, lots of twists and turns in that kind of position. It's a difficult one to kind of map out this, I think, in terms of who's going to have the most impact for us next year.
No, definitely. Honestly, I think these four players here are the fulcrum in terms of quality at our club. They are
100%
the best players at the club, you would like to say, and the players that I would like to think are going to be the ones moving forward. And the last 2 or 3 years, I've always looked at Maddison and Kulusevski as you lot are the light that are going to guide us in this post-Kane and Son era. And thankfully, we've recruited more with Kudus and Xavi Simons. Kudus, lovely. I think he has been brilliant this season. It's a shame he got injured at the point he did. I really felt like he was getting some good assist numbers. Yep. He was always an outlet for us. It's a shame the way he was being used. I felt like similarly like Porro was being overused. That whole right-hand side, to be honest, it was give it to
the only way we can build up.
And pray for the best, basically, is what it was with those two. So with Kudus, it's a shame. But for me, I still find it hard to put him over Kulusevski, in my opinion. And that's not just because I've got the shirt in the background, but Kulusevski, for me, honestly, there's very few players that have moved me the way he did when he went into that kind of central midfield area. But even before that, when he used to play out wide on the right, it's a balance that he has of technical ability, but it's desire and hunger to want everything as well. And I think that type of mentality, that type of character is so important for a dressing room. I look at him as like, you have to be one of the pillars of this club kind of moving forward. And I can only hope, as I mentioned earlier with Odobert, that him and Maddison would come back and, it's going to take time. They're not going to come back. And that's why I hope we don't even rush them back this season. Take your time, lads. I've written them off this year and said, next season we'll see them.
Yeah.
With Kulusevski, I still think he still has that kind of physical explosivity. I hope he's maintained some of that from this ACL injury, because that was one of the biggest strengths to his game. With Maddison, I think it's a little bit different. I think with Xavi Simons, it's no secret. I love Xavi Simons. I rated Xavi Simons since he was, a 15-year-old kid signing for PSG.
Yeah.
And it's for me, he is just one of those, the first ever wonder kid that we saw on social media, and we've actually watched his career blossom. Now, this year has been a lot of ups and downs, in my opinions, and you can sum that up with just the past 3 weeks. You look at the two Man United and Man City performances, you thought, wow, this is a special player. The way he picks up pockets, the way he's able to, even in tough games, still have an influence and be the biggest threat. But then you see the North London derby, where it's like, when he's not almost platformed correctly and put in a weird dysfunctional system, he can look like a fish out of water. And there's been a couple of times where we've seen that this year. Liverpool was another game where it was a really bad one. So I hope that it's kind of teething problems. I hope it's, the nerves of settling into a new league, a new season. And I've said all the time, coming to the Premier League is probably the biggest culture shock and adaptation for a lot of European players. So I hope he can kick on. I remember Kulusevski, when he came in, he took to it like a duck to water. So every player takes it differently.
Yeah.
Next season, the way I would look at it is Xavi Simons is a starter in a 10, but Maddison has that experience and technical ability, in my opinion, to be able to come on late in games and still be a threat. But then also in those kind of cup games, or when we rotate the side, that is exactly the kind of quality I want replaced. So what we're talking about with Udogie at left back, where we want a like for like in quality, that's what I have in a 10. That's what I have in the right wing position with those two there. So for me, it's a case of I would start Kulusevski on the right, Xavi Simons in the 10, and then Maddison I'd be more than happy to start him as well. But provided the levels haven't dropped off, provided physically, I'm not putting too much stress on them, because I am conscious of obviously those being big injuries. I don't want to see those guys re-injuring or having to overcompensate and then the other knee getting injured. So just take our time with Kulusevski and Madders. But Xavi, Simons and Kudus, these guys, I'm expecting more next year. I'm expecting what we've seen this year, another level of explosion.
Yeah, me too. I'm exactly the same as you with Xavi. I really like him. There's been up and downs this season. I think what I've liked about him over the course of the last couple of months especially is now he looks a lot more confident. He's kind of leading the team from the front a lot of the time, trying to win the ball back, trying to make things happen. He looks more confident. Things, despite maybe not coming off for him, a lot more is going through him. I think Sunday against Arsenal, there was a lot of times where he was kind of running down blind alleys because maybe he didn't really have the support. You kind of want to see him maybe get other players involved a little bit more. But again, he's kind of isolated himself in that system, really. And I think, again, if you're kind of looking at this squad under the proviso of a manager coming in next year that wants to give younger players a chance, knows how to platform them, breathe kind of confidence into them, has a better tactical understanding of the Premier League than our last two managers at operating at a higher level, then I think Xavi is absolutely a player that can thrive. I'm nervous about Kulusevski and more so Kulusevski than Maddison, because I think with Maddison, obviously, he's more towards the tail end of his career. And I think whatever we can kind of get out from him from this point onwards isn't a bonus, but it would just be really nice, especially now we've got Xavi, who I think there's, I've investing kind of stocks in for the long term. Kulusevski, I think he's got the mental strength to be able to kind of get over this. And like you said, I hope his physical kind of strength, which is something that's carried for him through a lot of games, to be able to put the team on his back, hasn't been too affected by this. I really hope Sweden don't get to that World Cup so he can kind of just have a bit of a summer off, then just join up with pre-season and then go from there. Just giving him the most amount of time to kind of rest as possible and then go again. I think he could bounce back from this, but I think he is one of those players that if his physical level drops off by 30% or 20%, I think it affects his actual level of performance by 50%. He just looks such a shadow of the player, even if he looks like he's played too much football. So I'm really hoping that he can be a key player for Spurs next year, but I'm a bit worried as well. So I'd have him in there, but just with that kind of worry.
I fully agree with that. That is my biggest apprehension. As I said, I think he is the one of the two between him and Madders that relies more on the physical aspect, like the way he goes up and down and his running numbers you would look at. Maddison can kind of sit in pockets and dictate space and uses IQ as he experiences as he gets older. But Kulusevski is the one that I'm like, I really hope you haven't lost that yard of pace, that bit of explosiveness, that that real aggression that you used to play with. And sometimes that can happen just through the mentality of, can I trust my body? Can I really do it? So it'll be interesting to see how they both kind of recover. But I just hope we don't put them in a situation where, hey, look, we're in a bad situation. Can you come in and save us the last 2-3 games of the season? And then they end up killing themselves just to try and come back. But
exactly. Right, that is the final tier list. I mean, that is not a bad foundation of a squad when you look at it in terms of the people we want to keep going into next year. There's clear kind of holes that we've already spoken about that need to kind of be improved upon. I'm going to leave the link to this tier list in the description so you guys can kind of go and do it yourself. I feel like we're happy with that, right?
No, I'm very happy with that. We're definitely gonna the clear out aisle is looking a bit hefty, but for me, I feel like it's needed, honestly, and I really like the loan section as well. I'll be honest with you; those are kind of long-term projects that we're looking towards, and I think the key players, those are the ones that you do want to see the clubs built around. Do you know what I mean? Over the next 2 or 3 years. But it's just a case of, we need to stay in the Premier League to do that.
Exactly. That is the big thing. And like I said at the start of the video, if you want to hear us talk more about that, we did do a video on Fuad's channel, predicting the run-in and whether we are going to stay in the Premier League, kind of going through every game in detail. So to make sure to go and watch that. Fuad, thank you so much for coming on, man. I've really enjoyed doing this.
No, pleasure, man. Honestly, appreciate you having me on. Always good to have a chat, and definitely won't be the last time as well.
No, we'll definitely do some more stuff together. So if you've got any other ideas for us that you want to see us do in the future, let us know in the comments. Let us know if you've enjoyed the video. Make sure to go and subscribe to Fuad. Drop me a subscribe as well. We're both on the road to 20k. I've also just created a non-Spurs football YouTube channel if you don't mind going and subscribing to that. Yeah, man, it started okay. So just need a bit of momentum to keep that one going. But if you guys could go and subscribe to that would mean the lot. And we'll see you in the next one.